Okay then, it's time for preview number 13. We are on to the P's and we start with Paris Eternal. So Paris Eternal, they're always different, right? There's always a massively different Paris Eternal every single season. So Paris Eternal Season 1, 14th place, not too bad for a new incoming team in the 2019 season. Actually, yeah, not too bad, especially with the roster they had. Then sweep that roster aside, mostly, bring in a load of Element Mystic boys and all that, and then we get a 4th placed Paris Eternal. Oh boy, like this is a serious Paris Eternal, not to be messed with, and then all of a sudden they ran out of money and lost their entire roster. And now we see a brand new Paris from Europe. Yes, we are going to get a proper Battle of Europe this year, because we've already looked at London, and now we've got a Paris Eternal team that is very much European compared to what it was last season. But before we go to that European squad, let's take a look at their hierarchy, their coaches, etc. Of course, all of it is changing. So 9K goes out and he becomes head coach of the Philadelphia Fusion. Rush goes out, becomes head coach of the Dallas Fuel. We're going to be talking a lot about the Dallas Fuel during this one. Then we see also Aid follow Rush to the Dallas Fuel. We see Levy leave as assistant coach and retire. And then we see Yoon leave as team manager and also no longer be part of a team. So, replacing them, Avalla did stay as general manager, the absolute savior of the Paris Eternal, that a lot of people will just prophesize these days, because Avalla did everything for Paris Eternal, and she has been a massive part of this rebuild. So, Get Amazed will be the head coach for the Dallas for the Paris Eternal, and then coming in as assistant coach is the ex-head coach of Dark Mode NA, who did so well in North American Contenders. And yes, the ex-main tank of London Spitfire last season, J-Mag. That's going to be very interesting. Yeah. I mean, he did very well as coach of Dark Mode NA, alongside Moomer, actually. And I'm going to be very interested to see how that one turns out. J-Mag is rated as a coach, very interestingly. But will he be good enough at the Overwatch League level to do it? Who knows? But going out in terms of the players then, it's, well, everyone. So Smex, Fielder, Smex went back to EU Contenders. He's now with ex-Oblivione. Fielder goes over to Dallas Fuel. No Smite goes out, doesn't find a team. Sparkle goes over to Dallas Fuel. Hambin goes over to Dallas Fuel. FD God goes over to the San Francisco Shock. XC goes over to Dallas Fuel. Ben Best finds himself at the Young and Beautiful now in EU Contenders. Soon finds himself at the Boston Uprising, and Nico will join Ben Best at Young and Beautiful in the EU Contenders region. Young and Beautiful looking darn good, actually, in EU Contenders. So Nico and Ben Best are looking for a way back into the league, and they've started off strongly. Anyway, moving on to this brand new looking Paris Eternal roster. It has it's all European, but it is a roster that has every single player from a different nationality, which is very interesting. It's a very spicy roster, and I especially rate the DPS, who we're going to go through first, actually, for the Paris Eternal. I don't know why I keep saying the Dallas Fuel, probably something to do with the whole Element Mystic thing. So first of all, we have, I think, one of the most highly rated incomers from outside of Korea for DPS this season. That was the sentence. That was meant to be a sentence. Anyway, this is Naga, the Danish DPS player. Naga, oh boy. So Naga comes in from Obey Alliance, the second best EU Contenders team last year, only to the British Hurricane. British Hurricane dominated EU Contenders last year. Same, and we know that pretty much from the London Spitfire story we looked at earlier on in this series. Naga has a massive history going all the way back to 2016 in EU Contenders. He is a flex DPS player. He's played for the Danish World Cup squad as well. He's been on teams like Goats and Copenhagen Flames, Shoesman Crew EU, Tea Party, Angry Titans, Ex-Oblivione, Team Doge, Obey Alliance, and now he finds himself in the league with Paris Eternal. I think Naga is a massive pickup for Paris. I never expected Paris to be able to yoink someone like Naga. I thought he would end up at the London Spitfire, and I think that is a big pin London have actually missed. Like, if London had signed Naga instead of Blase, I would have actually rated London big time, but Naga finds himself at Paris, and I think that's a massive pickup for them. Like, humongous pickup for Paris getting Naga. And they've managed to pair him with Onigod. So Onigod is, well, technically 3 people that have Overwatch League experience in this lineup. Well, 4 actually, it's kind of. Anyway, Onigod, 4 years with the Norwegian Overwatch World Cup squad. Been at Team Envy, Said Impact, Angry Titans, Toronto Esports, all the way back then. That name hasn't been around for a while. And then he finds himself at Dallas Fuel. Dallas Fuel, not a great team, let's be honest. Back when Onigod was on there, he was a quick replacement for Decay, and really didn't give him a chance to really show himself. Then he found himself at New Kings at the end of last year, did very well, and now he finds himself at Paris Eternal. I'm very glad that Onigod has been given another chance at the Overwatch League, because I think Onigod is a good player. He's hit scan, quite obviously, we know him for that, and I like this. Like, Naga Onigod DPS line, I think that's pretty stacked. Like, I like that. And if anything, I think that could be better than London's, and London's is deeper, although they did sign another DPS later on, Paris, that we'll talk about in a minute. But I do really, really like the Naga Onigod pairing. I really like that, and I think that could, like, it's a little bit of a DPS carry there, I think, at Paris, that could see them match some teams that perhaps they shouldn't do at times. I think the other parts might let them down ever so slightly, but I do like the DPS of Paris Eternal. I can't deny that. I can't deny that. And their DPS in a lone 1v1 DPS versus DPS will probably be able to match, if not outdo, London Spitfire, the EU rivals. It's in the other areas where I doubt Paris. So now we're going to move on to the tanks. First of all, they're off-tank. They're going to bring in the Swedish off-tank Elivote. Elivote was at the Washington Justice last year, and, well, I mean, the idea coming into last season was it was going to be Lolshish and Elivote at the Washington Justice, but Lolshish didn't get his visa, and so that messed things up big time, and Elivote was kind of in this mixed squad with Raw, and it all went really weird. However, Elivote was really good at Team Envy and Angry Titans back in the day. Like, really, really good. So there is something there. He goes out to Team Doge, does well for Team Doge, does well for New Kings, where he was with Onigod. So he already knew Onigod and had been paired up with Onigod, and they both come in to Paris Eternal. So I really like Elivote. Like, I like this pickup. I think this is a good pickup from Paris. I really do. And he's been paired alongside a non-Overwatch League main tank partner. So this is going to be Dan, his first experience at the Overwatch League, and Dutch main tank player. So Dan, this is a potential weakling for the Paris Eternal in my opinion. So he comes in from Revival, and he did have times at Sky Foxes, Phase 2, Ex-Oblivione, Young and Beautiful, The Ultimates. But I do think Dan is a slight... He must have done well in the transfer Paris, because I don't see otherwise why Paris picked him up, necessarily. I don't think he's the best main tank they perhaps had available. Obviously, there wasn't someone like Haddy if you want to go full EU, but I think there may have been better options. Again, I might be wrong, but this is going to be an interesting one, and I think this is where Paris start to fall slightly behind London. Because I'm gonna compare them to London, because, you know, the EU rivals, right? If we pit Paris against someone like Florida Mayhem or Toronto, I expect Paris to lose those matches. But when you come up against the likes of London and Houston, etc., then I start to look at it and think they could win. If they get it right, they could win. Now, Dan, I think, will get caught out meta-wise, big time. Like, he's got a great Reinhardt. I think he's a good Reinhardt, don't get me wrong. When it comes to more off-meta picks, I think he's going to become a little bit more sticky. And that's where he kind of falls behind his European rivals, Haddy, at the London Spitfire. Haddy's got a good Wrecking Ball. And so... this is where things come a little bit unstuck, and I think Dan is one of the weaklings of the Paris Eternal, and I think he's going to need, at times, his teammates around him to really get stuff done. I might be wrong though, and Dan did look good in the Steel Series Invitational that we saw Paris Eternal take part in, but the thing is, he was up against Stand 1 of the Boston Uprising. They did end up losing. It was 3-2, but they did end up losing. Thing is, the Boston Uprising kind of four-headed at times into Paris Eternal played into the Paris Eternal's hands, which allowed Dan to get value. And we are yet to see Dan go in a matchup, Rhine v Rhine and things like that, against League opposition. And I think that's where he may end up slipping. But again, this is a test of time, and we will see what happens to Paris in the early days of this season. Then we move on to the supports, and we see a very, very seasoned support come in for the Paris Eternal, because this is going to be Neptuno. Neptuno will be the oldest Overwatch League player this season at 29. Yes, knocking on the door of 30. I don't think we would ever expect an Overwatch League player to be knocking on the door of 30 years old. Anyway, he obviously is a long-term Overwatch League player since the inaugural season, was with the Philadelphia Fusion in the first season-ish, going into the second season as well, and then went over to Guangzhou Charge, had significant visa issues, much like Lolshish did at the Washington Justice. Nero also had these issues with Guangzhou Charge as well, and so became inactive there, didn't really play last season, and now he finds at Paris Eternal once again. I was surprised they picked up Neptuno, not gonna lie. And I think the main reason they've picked up Neptuno is because of that level-headed leadership quality that Neptuno has. He's older, he's a leadership figure, he has extensive experience, and I think that's exactly what Paris Eternal were looking for in a main support, which is what Neptuno obviously feels. Neptuno, will he be one of the best main supports? No. Will he be a top 10 main support? Probably not. Will he be decent? Yes. And this is the question I bring myself onto. Will he be able to still hang with the main sports in the league? I do not know. He will be able to, mentally and game sense wise and things like that. You don't tend to lose that at the Overwatch League level. But when it comes to mechanics on Lucio especially, that starts to worry me. That starts to worry me big time. So I will keep an eye on this, but I think Neptuno is a good pickup for his leadership and experience qualities, though. I think that is a massive, massive part of this pickup, and a big reason why Paris wanted him. And at the end of the day, he has experience in overall playoffs. He has experience of the grand finals with Philadelphia Fusion in 2018. So you can't deny that. But he has been out of the game for a little while, and he does worry me. I'm not going to lie. He does worry me. Moving on, and his partner will be Khan. So this is going to be the German flex support player coming in from, yes, Obey Alliance. So Paris Eternal, it's kind of a mashup of Obey Alliance, New Kings, and a bit of a few extra parts. So Khan was one of the best flex supports in EU last year, playing for Obey Alliance. He was following pretty much Ripper and Yofi, who were both British Hurricane flex supports, although Yofi left the Hurricane when Ripper came in. So again, a player with no Overwatch League experience, but extensive experience competing at the highest end of European contenders, which is never a bad thing, and extensive experience of playing against now Overwatch League opposition in the British Hurricane. So I don't know. Khan is another one that I have my ifs about, because I don't know whether he can keep up with league opposition. Like, flex support is one of the most stacked roster positions in the Overwatch League. And when you're talking about flex support, you're starting to talk about people like Aztac, Lastro, Violet, Twilight, Izayaki, people like that. Then you come to Alarm at the Philadelphia Fusion, people like that. Khan is not on that level. Like, he's not on their level. I cannot see him being on their level anytime soon. So this is definitely a bottom half of the league flex support, I would imagine. Quite how bottom of the half of the league he is, I think he's probably worse than Ripper from London. So that puts him definitely bottom half, like bottom half of bottom half. Then you've got to start comparing him to people like Crimzo and people like that. And that's where you have to start thinking, can he outdo them? And I think he can. I don't think he's quite that bad. So I quietly think Paris are not going to be the absolute bottom dumpsters that we're expecting them to be. Congratulations, Valiant. That's your place now. But I don't think he's going to be good enough either. I think he's going to see this season through with Paris, though. It's not going to be too bad. Again, I could be wrong about a lot of this, and they could just pop off and play insanely. But again, you never know. And the last roster spot is going to head to Suna. So Suna comes in from the Vancouver Titans. Suna, he's still only 19, Suna, which is pretty crazy. And he's the only French influence in this French team, I suppose. And Suna, he had his heydays back in the EU Contender States when he was on British Hurricane and Eternal Academy. And he was really good back then, especially when he was on British Hurricane. And he was at Disaster after that, and he went to Vancouver Titans, and Vancouver Titans, he did nothing. Let's be perfectly honest, he did nothing. The limelights at Vancouver were Dalton and Shockwave. And hence Vancouver didn't want to keep hold of Suna. Like, they could have kept hold of Suna, but they ended up letting go of Suna, and Paris picked him up on a free, basically. Because he would never have been in the league otherwise. And if you fail at that Vancouver Titans squad last year, how good are you? Like, honestly, you couldn't shine on a Vancouver Titans squad. So, yeah, that's a rough showing. Like, that is a rough showing. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Very, very interesting. And it's a roster that could do better than expected, but it's also a roster I don't expect to do massively well. If you see what I mean? It's a really weird balancing act, but that's kind of the way I see it. So, what we're going to do now, obviously, as we always do, is look at their first 6 fixtures of the season. First of all, they will be taking on Vancouver Titans. Now, that couldn't be a better start to the season for Paris. Honestly, the first 3 fixtures for Paris are incredibly nice. In perspective-wise, they're incredibly nice. So Vancouver Titans, that is a match Paris need to win. If they're not going to be down in the bottom dumpster of things, they need to beat people like Vancouver. And so I would predict Paris to beat Vancouver. I would actually, because I think, although Vancouver have got some slightly pop-off DPS, I think the DPS of Paris is actually better. And then I think Elivote, Dan, Neptuno, Khan, the support and tanks are going to be able to hold Vancouver, if not outdo them. So yeah, I think Paris will win that one. Then we have Paris versus Houston. This is this is difficult to call. I think the supports are very even. I think the tanks could be even. The DPS, there's a lot of depth in Houston. Like a lot of depth in Houston. But there's also significant pop-off from Paris, potentially. I think a lot of this will depend on how good Naga is and whether he can hit the ground running at an Overwatch League level. So, I think Houston will win. But I think it's going to be an incredibly close one. But it's a very winnable game for Paris. Then they go into the Atlanta Reign. I think that's when things get a lot more difficult for this Paris squad. It is a winnable game for Paris, but it's also a game where I expect them to lose. Like, Atlanta should have a fairly stable team. And they should have enough to see off Paris. And if they don't, that's bad from an Atlanta Reign point of view. So, I would back Atlanta Reign to win that one. Then the next 3 fixtures is where it really starts to go south for Paris, because then they have Florida Mayhem. I wouldn't expect them to get anything from that. Like, Florida should be too good for them. Then Toronto Defiant. Toronto should also be too good for them with their new look roster. And then they have Washington Justice, who also should be too good for them. Even though it's Elivote's return to the Justice, it's not going to be enough. Like, Washington, Toronto, and Florida are all going to have way too much quality for this Paris Eternal side. And if any of those 3 teams lose to Paris Eternal, then there's a serious reevaluation of their quality in the league this season. That's all I can say. But that's kind of the rundown for Paris Eternal. So, a team that will be bottom half of the league, but they could be a thorn in the side of some teams, I would say. We are moving on to more teams. Next up will be the Philadelphia Fusion, which is going to be a really, really interesting one because they've just signed a very, very big player, and it will probably turn their fortunes a little bit in terms of where I rank them in their power rankings, that's for sure. That'll be coming out very, very soon. All of the socials are linked in the video description for Illusion Gaming and myself. As per usual, there was an Illusion Gaming video yesterday on this channel. Go watch it, please. I beg of you. And yeah, I'm going to leave it here for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.